lovelies. Welcome back. My name is Beth. If you haven't joined us before, welcome to another Soul Hardy podcast. If you have, glad to have you back. So here we are all about closing those internet tabs. Forget about the to-do list, the anxiety, any of those things. And here we are going to calm our brains and we are going to, you guessed it, we are going to get this to work. Because sometimes things don't always go the way we want, and that's okay. We're going to reclaim our power. That's what we're going to do. So I'm doing things a little differently this time because although I absolutely want to just speak and be very raw. Do you like the candle? Yeah. Although I want to just speak and be very raw and authentic and talk to you from my heart, I want to make sure that I don't miss things. And last time, as wonderful as it was, like I can talk, your girl can talk if you didn't notice. If you know me, you know this. And so I really want to make sure that I'm not going to miss anything as we talk about things. So in this episode, who here struggles with healthy boundaries? I think we all do, right? Healthy boundaries are not difficult because of the fact that they're not difficult with a stranger because we're not going to see them again. We don't care what they think of us. We're not worried about that. Healthy boundaries are challenging because of the fact that, do you like the smell? Squirrel. I know. Is it so cute? Again, all about getting rid of the chaos. She is my calm. All the oxytocin. Give it to me. Love those happy hormones. So when we think about healthy boundaries, the only time that we need to enforce those healthy boundaries are with who? With our loved ones, with our family, with our friends, and all of that. So I really want to talk about specifically healthy boundaries with family. And this can apply to anyone. It can apply to friends, family, coworkers, anybody that you are in regular contact with, right? And so one of the things that I did, and you'll notice me looking down, again, I said I'm going to do things a little differently this time. I've got my iPad here already. I decided that I really wanted to talk about healthy boundaries because of the fact that I've had a lot. And when I tell you a lot, I mean a lot of instances over literally the last 6+ months where I have had the opportunity to put those healthy boundaries of mine into practice. And so I decided a little while ago that I have a very specific format and plan that works for me. I know that when you're in that moment, it's a little more challenging to do. So I actually have a free gift for all of you today, and I will put it in the link, and you can get a copy of my Sovereign Boundary Check-In. It's 7 steps to maintaining your peace, and I'm going to kind of walk you through this, right, today. But I also want to make sure that you have something that you can have on your phone, your computer, your iPad, tablet, whatever you use, if you want it. It's a great little tool to remind you how to make sure that you are able to really enforce those healthy boundaries. Because the reality of it is that, first of all, you have to know what those healthy boundaries are, right? So the first one is identify the tension. Know your line, right? So the check-in is when you are feeling that sudden wave of resentment, anger, irritation, disrespect, whatever you want to label it as, that right there, that is your indicator that your healthy boundary, that line, has been crossed. So that's the first thing that you need to be very aware of is what is that line for you, right? And it's going to vary in different situations, right? So with a sibling, it may be different than with a parent or with a friend, or right? So that's the other thing too is we may not even be aware of it, but we all have boundaries with every single person that we come in contact with, right? What we will allow, right? There's that saying of we receive the treatment that we allow, and we allow the treatment that we feel we deserve, right? So if you haven't seen any of my other things, you will soon come to find out that I am such a firm believer that self-love is the transformation, right? Because you don't care enough about yourself to even know what your healthy boundaries are if you don't love yourself first and foremost. So first you have to learn to love yourself, right? But then you can start to identify what these are, right? So knowing what that is, what is that boundary? What are your healthy boundaries? You have to first and foremost know what your healthy boundaries are before you can expect anyone else to respect them, right? If you don't know what they are, how can I respect them? Because I don't know what you don't know, right? So the next thing is checking your communication. So right with that whole like, I don't know if you don't know, right? So finding out what those healthy boundaries are, but then you need to communicate them, right? I am all about respecting others, regardless of that relationship. But how can I respect what your healthy boundary is if I don't know what that is? That's not really fair to me wanting to be respectful of what that healthy boundary is if I don't know what it is, right? So you have to first know what it is and then you have to communicate it. So when something happens and you're identifying, okay, I'm feeling like my boundary has been crossed, the very first thing you need to ask yourself is, does that other person know what your healthy boundary is? And if you can't confidently say, yes, absolutely, they know, I've told them countless times, then it's really your responsibility at that point in time to communicate what that healthy boundary is, right? So then the next one is always assume positive intention, right? I am such a firm believer. Are there horrible people out there who intend negative things? Absolutely. However, I am such a firm believer that the bulk of people, our intentions are pure. We want what's best for others, right? So then you want to always assume positive intent, right? Was this person aware of your boundary? And if they weren't, now you're going to speak it to them, right? And then you need to give them some grace, right? Because again, if I don't know what that healthy boundary was and I crossed it, obviously if I didn't know, I crossed it. And so my intent was probably not to cross that healthy boundary, but I have to know what it is, right? And so when you feel like, okay, now I've spoken it, right? Clearly they weren't aware. That's the assuming the positive intent, right? And then the next thing is speak it with kind authority, right? There is so much there's so much out there as far as so many of us, at least at some point in our lives, have been people pleasers, right? It's easy to do. Again, back to that whole positive intent. We don't want to cause problems. We don't want to offend someone. We don't want to, right? And so the reality is for a lot of us, it's hard to choose ourselves. Back to that whole self-love. That's the transformation. It's hard for us to choose ourselves and still feel like we're like it's hard to say no, right? Because we do care, we do want to be there, right? So then it's speaking it with kind authority, right? So restate what it was in a kind and loving manner, right? So a perfect example is if you have a loved one who is reaching out to you for support, right? And they're asking you to do something. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you, I don't know, could you pet sit my dog while I'm out of town, right? And the first thought in your head is, ugh, no, I can't. I'm not comfortable with that. Are you going to pay me? You know, you start having these different thoughts, right? So then at that point, how do you say no? So an example of being able to say no, very simply, where it still honors you being able to be kind while also telling them your healthy boundary and where that is at. Maybe you simply say, you know what, Beth, I would love to support you. Right now, I'm not able to pet sit, but what I could do is, and then whatever that is that you could do, right? So maybe it's like, if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to pick up your mail or, you know, whatever that looks like, right? Again, totally just an example off the top of my head. But it's one of those things where, again, you can say no and it can still be kind and loving. It can still be supportive, right? Then you have to remember your ownership, right? So you're the gatekeeper. No one else is going to enforce those healthy boundaries but you. No one. No one else is going to enforce them, right? So making sure that you are the architect of your peace and you're enforcing them when you need to. And is it uncomfortable? Yeah, it's really difficult, right? And then the sovereign pause, right? So when that boundary is being crossed or when it's tested, right? So you've already communicated it, you went through the positive intent, you enforced it and now it's coming up again, right? It's that pause of, okay, let me think through and let me go through the list. Like, I don't want to react from a place of anger or emotion or anything like that. So what does that look like, right? So that's where breathing, which is amazing, taking a deep breath in through your nose, out with your mouth, through your mouth, out of your mouth, can really just help to really reset that nervous system, right? And then the final one is just maintaining that grounded alignment, right? Thank you for kisses. Maintaining that grounded alignment, right? So it's that whole, if you've already communicated it clearly, you've expressed yourself with love, like you just go through the checklist, right? And then that's where you have to maintain your goal, your ground, right? So I am not the type of person, I don't want to call anyone out or anything like that. That is not my goal. I will tell you, though, that, like I said, I've had many, many experiences over the last 6 months where I've had to enforce these healthy boundaries. And I will tell you, for me, one of the big reasons why I even say close the internet tabs, we're getting to peace, in at the point in my life that I'm at, my peace is the most precious. It is priceless. And so I am at a point in my life where I've done all the deep healing. Not saying there isn't more to do. There's always more healing to do, right? But I worked so hard to learn to love myself completely. We'll talk about that in another episode. But I learned to love myself completely and accept myself completely. And I am my authentic self now. And as a result, I I know what I deserve, and I'm the only one who is going to enforce that, right? Like, and it's not even necessarily, like I said, sometimes it's not intentional, right? Sometimes, but again, intent doesn't always match the impact, right? If you get in a car accident, was it your intent to get in an accident to potentially hurt someone else? Absolutely not, right? Accidents happen. However, just because it wasn't your intent to get in the car accident does not mean that the impact, the damage, the injury to someone else isn't important, doesn't exist, right? And so the biggest thing that I think is so critical with all of it is to remember, like I said, for me in my life, right? You have to decide where you're at, but I am all about peace and getting to peace. And I am at a point in my life where I am not going to allow, back to the whole, you receive the kind of treatment you allow. I am not going to allow any kind of disrespect or mistreatment or abuse or anything of that nature. And so, because of that and because of peace, does it smell good? Yeah, it's vanilla. She's smelling the vanilla and the candle, huh? I'm not going to allow anyone into my life, regardless of what that relationship is. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to allow anyone into my life that isn't going to respect me and my boundaries, and because my peace is more important, I am that parent where I raised my child who is now 25. Whew, my baby is 25. I am that person who, when I raised my child, I made a point of telling my kid what matters most in a partner. And my child at the age of 10 would come back and say how they treat me. 100%. 100%. And so I taught my child also that, you know, I don't care who it is, even if it's mom. Now, I would never treat you that way, is what I told them. And I obviously would not and have not. However, I made it very clear to my kid that it doesn't matter what relationship that person is, it doesn't matter what role that person has. Are you having fun? What role that person has in their life, in your life, right? Still doesn't change the fact that it is called common human decency to respect one another. And that comes down to those healthy boundaries of, I don't know how many times I have asked somebody to do something, right? And, and like I said, I'll give them the grace, right? The last time somebody yelled in my face, I stayed calm and I said, please don't yell in my face. Please don't scream at me. And I just kept repeating myself very calmly until the person walked out of my face. And then I went up to the person later and I said, you scream about me again, and I'm done. So don't scream at me. That's a boundary. Now, see, I have clearly communicated to all of you what one of my healthy boundaries is. So you can do it too. If you want that free guide, like I said, I've got the free sovereign boundary check-in, 7 steps to maintaining your peace. I will put the link here. You can get it for free. And just to give you that nice little peace of mind of how are you able to maintain that, and you can start building the habit, because I will tell you there is nothing else that helps to get your peace better than and faster than enforcing those healthy boundaries. So I thank you again for joining me. Please subscribe, follow along, comment, tell me what's something that you're going to work on. What's a healthy boundary you want to work on? Or what's a healthy boundary that you're struggling with? Or just talk to me about your healthy boundaries. I want to know all about it. I want to go on this journey with you. So thank you all so much for joining me. Thanks. Say thanks. She's like, I'm so done with this, Mom. Thanks so much for joining me. Like I said, click on the link. Check out the link in my bio for all of my offerings. And like I said, click follow and subscribe to continue on this journey with me. So happy to have you. And good luck on your healthy boundaries. Bye, lovelies.